Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for their newest selections of GM vehicles, pre-owned and new vehicles, or call them at 519-824-0210. And a special thank you to Mark Cullen for having faith in me and my podcast Live with CDP Sports Talk. And I'm looking forward to having a sponsorship with them for a long time. Again, you guys can check out their website at barrycullen.com or 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. And this is where I get all my vehicles from. The last 30 years is from Barry Cullen GM Chevrolet dealership in Guelph. Guys, thank you everybody for coming on to Live with CDP podcast today. This is season 4, episode 30, or my 195th episode since March of 2020. And I'm looking forward to speaking to Ryan Drury, the color analyst on the Guelph Storm Rogers broadcast, and with CKNX News in Wingham, Ontario, and Ember Campbell, a longtime volunteer camera operator for the Rogers TV, for the Guelph Storm games, Rogers TV, and also with Gryph Vision at the University of Guelph. So just bear with me, guys, and I'm going to bring on my guests, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Ontario Hockey League and the 2022-2023 Guelph Storm team. Good afternoon, Ryan, and good afternoon, Amber. How are you doing? I'm good. How are you guys? Good.
Doing well.
Good. Well, thank you all for coming on here, and look forward to talking to you about the return of the OHL and this 2022-23 Guelph Storm team.
It's going to be exciting. Go ahead.
Honestly, I cannot wait for the season to be back. I am raring to get back in the building.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think, to echo that after what we saw last year, I think that the expectations have certainly gone up in terms of what the Guelph Storm are going to look like. And I think that, if anything, I expect them to be better than they were last year. And why wouldn't you after some of the talent that we saw?
Absolutely. That defense is going to take a step forward. The offense was already good last year, but going into this year, having a bunch of your young guys really prove themselves last year, now probably getting more top 6 roles. The big question for me is that backup goalie. Who is it? Because Oster's clearly the starter, with Owen Bennett not reporting, with Dixon Grimes being week to week with, I believe, a lower body injury.
I saw him get hurt against the Oshawa Generals last Friday, and I think he's going to be out for a little bit while yet. I think they're going to be on the safe side with this injury.
Yeah, I was Tony Saxon, who is a great follow on Twitter for All Stuff Guelph Storm, reporting yesterday that there was no update and that he's still week to week with an LBI.
I was going to say, and I don't know who they have out other than Oster on the roster right now. Is there another guy they called up or they picked up from a junior B team to help out?
I know they had 3 or 4 different goalies in camp. I could not for the life of me tell you any of their names.
Because to me, I think this is going to be one of their areas they need to address, because I'm still not sold on Oster either. And he's only, 17 years old, and this is only his second year. It's just, I think their defense, like you said, is going to be solid. The forwards should be good. Now, is Sasha Pashinoff going to be returning to this team this year?
I definitely think so. I don't see any reason why Anaheim would see fit to try and shoehorn him into an AHL role. That's a little, that league is more physically demanding than I think a lot of people realize. It's all guys who are either veteran guys that are no longer in the NHL or desperate to try and get there, or young guys trying to prove that, their draft slot, was worth the team's time. So I don't think on Anaheim's part, who are in the midst of a long-term rebuild right now, why there would be any rush to try and again, shoehorn Pastajov into a situation that physically he's probably not ready for. I think he could use another year of junior hockey, and what we saw him do last year as an OHL rookie would lead you to believe that he has an opportunity to probably be one of the best goal scorers, if not potentially the best goal scorer in the league this year. And I think that experience would be invaluable to him. And again, it's not to say that he won't be a pro, because I think he will. It's just he's a little on the slender side. He could use, another year of putting some meat on the bones. I personally don't think he's ready for pro hockey, and I would probably be shocked, honestly, if he wasn't in a Guelph Storm uniform.
Ember, what do you have to say?
I can't put it as eloquently as that, but that's one thing that I've been really thinking about all summer. It was a good sign for us as Storm fans and as crew and all that he was at training camp. It really depends on what he does at Ducks camp. If he impresses the coaches, he might get a spot. I'm hoping he ends up back in Guelph, because as Ryan said, he's a really slender dude. So I personally, at this point in time, I don't know what his summer regime is, but at this point, I think he's too small to be playing pro hockey. He'd get killed.
And I was going to say right now, guys, before we get into questions, I guess the Storm have 8 players away at NHL camps.
Yeah, which is really impressive, honestly. And, we talked about that a lot on the broadcast last year, Trevor, Steve, and I, and, obviously COVID had a factor in that, with kind of stockpiling 2 years-ish, if you will, worth of picks, but they had a great draft. They had a great showing at the NHL draft. I personally still feel that Danny Zhilkin should have been a first-round pick. That's just my opinion. And I think that, I'm not an expert scout or anything. I just yell into the microphone. But I personally think in a few years' time, we'll see that he will outperform some of the guys, particularly later in the first round, that got picked ahead of him. I think Winnipeg got a steal, to be perfectly honest with you. So I just think that, they have an opportunity this year to do something really special. And those 8 guys, who I think will all be back. I mean, if memory serves, the 8 players that are gone, obviously Zhilkin passed a job, and then you've got Luka Profaka, who earned a tryout with the Ducks. And how much did we talk about him last year? That guy's a pro player. He probably is the most likely to earn a pro contract and maybe not return to Guelph. I think he will come back to Guelph, simply because he'll have an opportunity to play on a really good team, and NHL scouts and teams love that. They love when a guy has an opportunity to be part of a really good junior team. But he's a pro player. He will be playing pro hockey somewhere, no doubt in my mind. Then, of course, you got Matt Poitras, who got selected by Boston. Cooper Walker, again, a kid who just grinds, tries so hard, does all the little things, nothing flashy about him. He just goes hard every night, and he's a coach's dream, really. He earned a tryout with Calgary. I think it's safe to say he'll probably be back. Bowman, Bushinger, Carabella, of course, and Danny Zhilkin. Yeah, I think that there's a high likelihood all 8 are back. Profaka would be the guy that I would put money on maybe not returning.
I was going to say, yeah, I think to me, he might, everyone's going to say Cam Allen, but to me, my favorite defenseman on the Storm team is Profaka, because of his work ethic. He's good at both ends of the game. And I think you're right. I think he will be in the NHL in the next 1 or 2 years, maybe in a year of seasoning in the AHL, but he's definitely has a lot of potential to be in the NHL. And I think him and Cam Allen are going to be 2 of the best defensemen in the Ontario Hockey League this year.
Arguably, Profaka was one of the best defensemen last year, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
And from a camera operator's perspective, who mainly does tight follow, Luka Profaka is a human highlight reel for either hits, defensive stops, which a lot of people don't think are highlights. I disagree. Dude doesn't usually use it, but he has an absolute cannon of a shot when he releases it.
Absolutely. I was gonna say I'm really looking forward to seeing this team, and like you said, I think George Burnett. We'll get into that after too, with the return of Scott Walker behind the bench and George Burnett doing the GM duties as well. But the first question I wanted to ask you guys, both of you, what are your thoughts on the Ontario Hockey League for this coming? I got the year wrong here, boo boo on my part. Thoughts on the Ontario Hockey League for the upcoming 22-23 season overall, and who are some teams in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference to look out for besides the Storm in the West?
Well, right off the bat, Owen Sound comes to mind. I mean, they had such an impressive crop of rookie players. I mean, Cedric Gandon immediately jumps off the page at me as a guy who's going to have a monster year. I thought that they had a trio of guys last year who were incredible. They've got a good D-core. They're well coached. We know they're well managed. Dale DeGray is, as good a GM as you're going to find across junior hockey. I think the Owen Sound attack and the Guelph Storm, if I were a betting man, which I am, I would be hedging bets on both of them to be a top 3 team in the Western Conference. I think both of them, if all the players that can return do, that we just talked about, especially on the Guelph side, I think both those teams have a real opportunity to do something really, really special this year. I think Mississauga in the East is still going to be really, really good. Hamilton, of course, I think is going to take a step back. That's to be expected. They went all in last year. It paid off for them. I still think they'll be good. I don't think they'll miss the playoffs, but I think they'll take a step back. Kingston is the X factor for me. Is Shane Wright coming back? I don't know. A guy that gets drafted that highly, that was supposed to be the consensus number 1 pick and wasn't. Generally, they don't come back. I think he might, because Ron Francis typically has been a pretty conservative guy when it comes to prospects, but maybe they feel some pressure in Seattle to have a big name finally attached to the team. I think Oshawa and Ottawa are both going to be really good too in the East, but the one team that really jumped out to me that I think is going to be a real thorn in people's sides next year for both conferences is Owen Sound. If we're not talking Guelph Storm, which is kind of our area of shared expertise, I guess, Owen Sound is the team for me that everybody should be looking over their shoulder for.
Yeah, and you know what? They don't seem to get enough credit for what they do. Obviously, they haven't won a lot of Memorial Cups, and they've only won the OHL title once. But every year, the Owen Sound attack are very competitive and are a hardworking team. And I agree with you on that, Ryan. Amber, what's your thoughts?
Personally, from the East, I don't know too much more. So, because my team isn't in the Eastern Conference. So, one interesting team to me is Peterborough. Honestly, with that, I can't remember how they did last year. I don't think it was too well. So
they missed the playoffs.
So to see those guys come back another year stronger, another year more experienced in the league, I really want to see what Peterborough does. And also, like, let's be real, Peterborough, I don't think is talked about a lot OHL wise when you have bigger names like your Generals, your 67s, your Knights, your Greyhounds. Peterborough to me is, I believe, a team that will surprise some people. Where Western Conference, I've said this for years, the Midwestern Conference is the division of death.
It is.
No matter what year it is, 2 teams are good. London, even in their bad years, still ends up finishing 6th somehow. Guelph usually makes the playoffs more often than not. Owen Sound, I love Owen Sound. They're my second favorite team in the league. I have an Owen Sound jersey. To me, Guelph and Owen Sound are going to really impress some people this year, and I really, really hope it's a Highway 6 rivalry in the Western Conference final. I really hope so.
That'd be amazing.
I'm going to go with two teams that you guys didn't bring up. One is the Niagara Ice Dogs, I think, with their new ownership and Wayne Gretzky being a part of it, and Daniel Fitzgerald, who have had on my show, coming from the Brantford 99ers as their new head coach, and getting Pascal Zito from the Spitfires and Matt Pappas from the Storm. I think the Niagara Ice Dogs are going to surprise a few people in the Eastern Conference because they've pretty well overhauled their roster. And I think with the new coaching staff and ownership in place, I think the Ice Dogs are going to be very competitive this year and might surprise some people. And with the Kitchener Rangers, they obviously have a new coach behind the bench, and McKenzie's back as GM. I think Kitchener and Niagara are two of the teams that I would keep an eye out for. Just my gut feelings.
Well, Kitchener's always, they're always in the mix. And I mean, they're just such a historic franchise that you can't not pay attention to what they're up to. I think they'll probably be better this year too. And I mean, I think the thing that hurt them the most last year when it came down to the nitty-gritty situations of the difference between a win and a loss was their goal scoring ability. Like they are a little, I don't want to say bereft because that's probably a little harsh, but when I look around at other teams like Guelph, London last year, we'll see if some of those guys come back this year. We're talking Evangelista and Strongis. That's up in the air. But you look around at some of the top end talent, particularly in the West. Did Kitchener really have anybody on their team last year that jumped out at you offensively? Not really. They had a bunch of good, solid players, but nobody that I would describe as a star. Certainly no one that would come up within the top 10 offensive talents, top 15 even offensive talents in the league. And I'm not trying to be harsh with them. I just think that that's what hurt them last year. This year, we'll see. I mean, Berstowitz looks like the real deal. It looks like they're going to get an injection of skill there. I love Joseph Serpa. I love the career he's carved out for himself. I watched him in Junior B. And he struggled when he first came here. He's really turned into a good player. Zidlicki is going to get an opportunity to take a step forward. Of course, I think everybody there has big expectations for a kid like Carson Rakoff. I think Kitchener will be better this year. Will they be on par talent-wise with the Owen Sounds and what we expect, the Guelph Storm to be? I don't know, but they'll be in the mix. As far as Niagara goes, I think everybody's just interested to see how they lay down a new foundation. That was a gong show last year. It was embarrassing for the league. It was embarrassing for the sport. And I think that everybody's just kind of keyed in, myself included, kind of from afar, to see how they try and turn this around and fix it. It's a great building there. It's a good fan base. And hopefully they can get it right, because when it clicks in Niagara and they have a good team, it's a fun place to be around. And last year was not fun. So hopefully they can figure it out.
I was going to say, what are you guys' thoughts on Matt Pappas going to the Ice Dogs, and how much will Guelph miss him? And what kind of numbers can you see him producing in Niagara Falls or Niagara this year?
I think he was such a popular teammate. You could really tell that all the guys loved him. When he scored, everybody was excited. He's a hard worker. He's not a big guy, but he's perfectly happy to get his nose dirty and take. I couldn't even keep up with the cross checks he took in the back last year in front of the net on power plays. The kid is everything you want in an OHL player. I think he's probably going to get a lot more ice time. He's a veteran guy who's proven he can score. Wouldn't shock me to see him score 20 in Niagara with some of the young kids that they're bringing through there. I think I'd safely mark him down for a 20 goal, maybe 50, 55 point season, simply because I think he is good enough to do that. And he's going to get the ice time as a veteran guy. He's going to be one of the more veteran guys on that team, and they'll show him the respect in terms of ice time.
Ember?
I was thinking about the same, about 20, 25 goals, 50, 55 points. Guelph did want to keep him. He was an overager, and from what I heard, it came down between him and McFarland. And I love Matt Pappas, but I'm sorry, I love Ben McFarland more. both two amazing players, but Ben McFarland does a little bit more than Pappas does. He does penalty kills. He'll fight if he has to, and about half the time last year, I'm pretty sure he wanted to. He's 5'8", but don't tell him that. Like my dad, who barely follows the team, if he knows your name, you're doing something right. And in the past 5-6 years, he's known two names, Ben McFarland and Cedric Ralph. So I think that should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah, and like I said, unfortunately, sometimes with OHL teams, they got to make hard decisions with overagers, which ones to keep, because I believe you're only allowed to have 3 on the roster during the regular season and the playoffs.
It's 2 or 3. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, it's you're allowed 3 at lower levels depending on what league. I know Junior B is 3 usually as well. Junior C is 4 depending on the league. But yeah, OHL you're allowed 3, and yeah, unfortunately it's just a tough decision, right? That's the cyclical nature of junior hockey. But I guess the nice side of it is when you have too many guys that are overagers that are going to be useful to teams like a Niagara who's trying to right the ship there and could use a guy like Matt Pappas on their roster, you can kind of benefit from either getting another player or getting some picks. And that's exactly what Guelph did. And I bet Matt's going to have a good, solid year in Niagara. He's going to endear himself to the fans there, just like he did at the Sleeman Center. And can't wait to see him back in the building. I'm sure the guys will be ready to receive him back with open arms, because he was a really popular guy.
I'm going to say he's going to get 30 goals and 35 assists for 65 points with the Ice Dogs. That's my prediction. 30, 35.
Bold,
65.
taking the over.
65. Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
I'm happy taking the under on that one.
But I was going to say, a year ago, guys, didn't the Storm start out the season without even an overager on the team last year? I believe.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah, they had no overagers up until, they made 2 separate trades with Sarnia. They got Saprika, and then, of course, Guy and Reeser came in a package deal 2 weeks before the deadline, I think that was. And, I mean, Guy was the big get, he even exceeded, I think, what Guelph expected of him. They thought this guy's going to come in, he's a captain, ended up wearing the C for Guelph, and he completely blew everybody's expectations out of the water. They figured, we're going to get this gritty veteran guy. He's going to come in, set a tone, physically label people along the wall. He's going to bring guys into the fight. And he did fight a few times, but bigger than that, boy, did he score some big goals for the team. Holy cow. He just out of nowhere got this clutch gene, and he was fantastic. I thought Saprika was a little up and down. They had to put him in at forward some of the time just simply because of some injury issues that Guelph ran into later in the year. And I thought he was solid. If not unspectacular. I thought he played pretty okay. And Reeser was an excellent ad on the penalty kill in particular. The punishment he took and the shots he blocked. I thought all 3 guys were welcome additions, and you could tell it improved the cohesiveness in the room. 3 older guys come in and everybody respected them, and everybody started playing a little harder, especially when Guy would get going on the forecheck. He led the charge most nights, and that's why George strapped the C on him. And he was well worth it.
Ember?
Yeah, with Guy coming over in that trade, I don't watch a lot of Sarnia Sting hockey, despite having a member of my family who loved the Sting. So I didn't really know what to expect. I wanted Saprika to do well because I have a game-used Saprika jersey from when he was in Peterborough. But Guy really basically was captain from day one. When he got there and started playing, the team looked different. I remember when he got hurt and he was gone, I can't remember how many games. But I remember after one game, I was just like, the team is just so different without him. There is no fight in this dog without Brandon Guy there as their leader.
Okay, and that leads to my next, I was going to bring this up. Obviously, with this 2022-23 team, who are some of the players you expect to be solid leaders for this team this year?
Well, Luka Profak off the top is
give him the C. Give him the C.
I couldn't agree more, Ember. I I don't look out at the roster and see a more suitable captain. Based on everything we kind of said earlier, and I mean, we all know what Bill Granger thought of him, and we all feel the same. This kid's a pro player, and he's overcome a lot, right? Like he doesn't have a lot of flash in his game. He's old school. He lays the body, he lays out and blocks shots. He's got a great defensive stick, and like Ember said, you know, that's not the sexy stuff that shows up on the highlight reel, but it's important. You need guys like that to win hockey games, you know? So I think that it just makes so much sense for him to wear the C. I'd actually be shocked if he didn't. And then beyond him, you know, Matt Poitras, I thought he played so well last year as a rookie, earned himself a great pick. I think the Boston Bruins organization is thrilled that they were able to get him in the second round, because much like Zhilkin, I think time might show that he probably should have been a first rounder too. I trumpeted it all year. I thought the two of those guys were first round picks, in my opinion anyway. I think he'll be part of the leadership core. And, you know, you look down the list and, you know, Danny Zhilkin is probably a guy who kind of goes about his business on the ice quietly. He's kind of, you know, when Pastajov's not going, Danny Dangles is the guy that kind of stirs the drink there. He's going to be a big part of the team. But I completely agree with Ember. Like when I think captain, I think of Luka Profaka first and foremost.
There is that old adage in hockey, like to build a winning team, you have more captains in the room than guys who wear letters.
That's right.
So for me, Danny Dangles, as you said, Ben McFarland, Cooper Walker. There was some photos floating around Instagram of Braden Bowman wearing a letter. So to me, you have a lot of leaders in this dressing room. I just hope it translates well to the ice.
When do you think George Burnett and Scott Walker will sit down and make a decision on this? Do you think they'll do it just before the home opener, or do you think they might wait a few games into the regular season?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you never really know with George. He's a guy that, I mean, I've heard people kind of joke that he's the Lou Lamoriello of the OHL.
I was just about to say that he's the Lou Lamoriello of the OHL.
And he is. I mean, he's certainly not as crotchety, if you will, as Lou is, but he is similar in the sense that he plays his cards very tight to his chest. He's not a guy that's going to reveal a bunch of information about a certain player, an injury, a situation. Like he gives you the bland answer, and when George wants to tell you what's up, you'll know the second he makes up his mind. I wouldn't be surprised if, I think just based on the way this team is setting up, I think that we'll know who the leadership core is before game one. Last year, they had no overagers like we just talked about. There was no real good definitive look at what a leadership core is. They've had a year to watch these guys now and expect to be, at least I do, and I think the fans in Guelph do, a good team here. So I think that they will have a leadership core announced before the season starts.
What do you think, Ember?
I mean, I know before the home opener, they're doing like a big fan fest downtown. It would be incredibly good PR if you announce the captains at that event right before the game. And then, of course, since I'm inside putting stuff together and getting ready to shoot, I'm going to miss it.
I was going to say, we're going to have a new producer this year for the Storm games. I guess it's going to be Robert and Adam, I guess, combination of both of them.
I've worked with both. I love working with both of them. Adam, I've worked with a little longer with doing wrestling and all that different stuff. Robert, I worked more with when he was a volunteer before he got the job at Rogers. So I'm excited to work with both. I love working with both of them, and I cannot say enough good things about both of them.
Yeah, and I can't wait to do the broadcast next week against the Mississauga Steelheads.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I would just like to say, obviously, we're going to miss Neil. I mean, Neil White, you know, I did some fill-in duty over the last couple years before COVID, just as Neil was kind of coming in as the permanent producer, I should say, with Guelph. And then I met him a couple times prior to me becoming a permanent member of the team. And yeah, he was my first producer as a full-time OHL broadcaster. And I can't say enough great things about the guy. Like, he made my job so easy. I felt like I was part of the team for 20 years, just like Steve Fitzsimmons has been. Like, he made everybody better. He made everybody want to be better. As far as Adam and Rob go, I'm excited to work with them too, because Neil has had nothing but good things to say to me about both of them. And if Neil White thinks you're a good guy, then that says a lot to me. So I'm excited to get the season going.
Yeah, and it's not easy being a producer. You're basically like a quarterback on a football team. You have to be good at every area of the broadcaster.
Well, he'll hate me. Neil will hate me for saying this. He was our Tom Brady. I'm not going to compare him to a Dolphins quarterback. I know he's a big Dolphins fan because the Dolphins suck. All right. I know how week 1 went, Neil. All right. I don't need your texts. Okay. But he seriously, and I don't say that lightly, as a Patriots fan, he was our Tom Brady, and we're going to miss him.
Okay. Just going to get into some more questions. What did you guys both think of the last year's Storm team overall and their first round playoff series to the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds? And how valuable will that experience with young players playing will help them this year?
Well, I think last year you could certainly say a couple things about the Storm. They were surprising. They were consistently inconsistent, and they were very exciting to watch. Like, they ended up on the OHL highlight of the night a lot. I believe they actually tied for the 4th most appearances. They were so fun to watch, but you never knew what you were going to get. And that was to be expected with, like, I remember the first broadcast of the year, we were going, if these guys can finish 6th or 7th in the West and kind of, find their feet a little bit. I mean, they were in first place at the Christmas break. That long COVID layoff, you could tell it really affected them. They were on a heater. That last game against London on December 18th, they were feeling it, and they were having a lot of fun. Then we get the fans back in the building, and they kind of stumbled all over themselves a little bit. They had a bit of a rough ride down the last stretch of the season, end up in 5th. And I think that ultimately, obviously playoff experience is great, especially at this age. I think they got a really good look at just how hard it is to win in this league from a Sioux team that was really deep, that was really disappointed to not go all the way. They felt like they had a team that could have won an OHL title. I think that Guelph's young guys, and particularly the star players leading the way, your Pastajovs, your Zhilkins, your Poitras, Carabella, go down the list. I think they all got a look at what a really deep, hardworking, well-structured team. Because that's one thing you couldn't really say about the Storm last year. Like, I don't think anybody would describe them as well-structured a majority of the time. It was kind of a fire sale and wild 3-goal comebacks. How many times did they come back from multi-goal deficits halfway through the game? I think they got a really good look, and will take some lessons, because the Sioux, as much as some of the games were close, the Sioux handled them handedly. And I think that they got a big wake-up call about what it's going to take to have success in the OHL.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, Sioux made them taste their own blood, metaphorically speaking. So I watched Game 5, and about halfway through the first, I'm like, oh no, insert some expletives. This team is cooked. But if you're someone like Profaka, leader in that room, after that game, you go, boys, welcome to playoff hockey. You want to win? We have to beat this team. So go home during the summer, work hard, show up at camp, and let's kick their you-know-whats next season. Now, that being said, the Sioux always have a really good team, and they always seem to be Guelph's kryptonite. So I hope that this year they can finally slay the dragon.
And I was going to say, and it's also going to be nice to see the Eastern Conference teams too, because we didn't get to see them last year due to the pandemic. So it's going to be nice to see teams like Hamilton come into town, Oshawa, Peterborough, etc., to come in and play the Guelph Storm as well.
Yeah, that'll be a nice change. As much as I really love, the rivalries, particularly in this Midwest Conference, Guelph and Kitchener, Guelph, Owen Sound, London, of course. I mean, you kind of are like, boy, there are other teams in the league, right? Like, Fitzy and I would show up and be like, I just saw this guy's name on the sheet a week ago. Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, there's other teams, right? And as much as I like seeing, Chris Pope and, the Rangers broadcasters and Mike, and they were probably getting sick of seeing me, to be honest. So it will be nice to have a little bit more variety at the Sleeman Center this year, because there's great players in the East that we just didn't get to see, and that's a shame. But I'm really, really looking forward to this year because it's going to be back to business.
Thoughts on Jack Moore being named the Oshawa Generals full-time radio announcer? I believe it was yesterday, and he announced it on his Twitter page.
Think it's a great hire. I mean, he's got a great voice. He's got a great delivery. I think he's going to make fans there really happy. And to be honest, I think most broadcasters would tell you this. I certainly think so. Calling hockey games on the radio is way harder than calling it on TV, because with TV, you kind of are letting the picture tell the story, obviously, a little bit. You're just kind of trying to add some extra information. Certainly as the color voice, you're just trying to inject a bit of information that maybe people don't see, particularly breaking down replays, which I love doing. On the radio, like, you have to describe everything that's going on, where exactly the puck is, far boards, near boards, behind the net. You have to be a motor mouth. Like, it's hard to do play-by-play, especially on the radio. And I think they made a great hire. He's going to do a great job.
Amber, thoughts?
I don't know anything about this person. I'm really Guelph-centric when it comes to personalities that would do broadcasts, so I'm going to have to take your guys' word for it.
I was going to say, Ryan, since I have you on, do you know who they'd have replacing Jack on the Rangers broadcast, or they haven't announced that yet?
I don't think they've announced it, and I haven't even been able to talk to anybody over there yet this year. Like, I know the guys over there, Sean Fafaro and all those guys on the crew. I haven't even, thought to reach out to them. I'm sure whoever they get's going to do a good job. Like, they always have a good crew. So I would assume that whoever they pick, it's going to be with good reason, because they're one of the better broadcasts to watch across junior hockey in general. Forget about the OHL. They always do a really great job over there, and they should, because it's the Kitchener Rangers.
Okay. Amber, I wanted to bring this up with you too, since you've been a volunteer with Rogers for 8 years and a camera operator. Everybody realizes the broadcasters, they get on TV and radio, they get a lot of the credit and stuff, but the behind the scenes guys too. And just tell us about your 8 years with Rogers and what you like the most about doing it, and set up for the Guelph Storm games as well.
Yeah, it has been 8 years. Technically it's going into my 8th season because of the COVID shutdown year. I choose to count it because I would have done it if they allowed me to. But I've been there a while. I love what I do. An average day for me, it's like my sleep schedule is usually messed up. So it's like, get up at noon, shower, have something to eat. I'm out the door at 2. I'm there by 2:30, and then work begins. And then you set up everything. Then we usually have some downtime. So we middle around, we go to the mall, which is in the adjoining building, and like buy an energy drink, have food, and then it's game time. And at that point, I'm a former athlete, so I'm very superstitious in certain things that I do. So come game time, I always do the same thing. I'm laser focused. And one of my profs when I was in college for TV said the high that you get from doing a live broadcast is better than any drug you will ever fine. And I absolutely agree with that. The adrenaline rush that I get when I hear the producer counting down for us to go to air gets the blood pumping.
I was going to say, Ryan, what's it like for you and Steve before a game, just for the audience as well? Because everybody thinks, oh, the hockey game, this is easy, but they don't realize how much work there is in a setup and then a teardown, and then what you guys have to do for your part of the broadcast as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say, like, Ember is someone that we really lean on, especially me, because last year was my first full-time season covering the team. Ember's an encyclopedia for the Guelph Storm, like, knows everything, could name like probably every player over the last 30 plus years. It's, you know, it's great having people around like that care that much about the team you're covering, because you just have so much more information to kind of lean on and glean from the people. And Ember's one of the people there that you can tell really cares about being there. And that makes life great for us, because like we don't do any of the setup and tear down. Like, I don't know how much people realize with live sports, the amount of work that's going in. Like Ember shows up at the rink at 2:30. I show up at the rink at 6. Like I walk in, everything's done. Like I just show up and put a headset on, you know, essentially. Now, to your question, I mean, is it that easy? I always kind of laugh when, you know, people, more so with Steve, because Steve likes himself a good Twitter battle.
I know it. I have seen them.
Steve is not afraid to go at people. I couldn't care less. I would say I'm lucky, because I think our crew, you know, I'm biased. I think we have the best crew in the league. Ember's a big part of that. I mean, did we ever hear our producers in our ear going, sorry, we don't have that shot, we don't have that on replay? No. Neil, anytime I asked for a replay, of course we had it, because we've got the best people. So that makes my life easy. But it does kind of it does bother me a little bit when people say, oh, anybody could do that. I don't care if people think I suck as a broadcaster.
You don't, by the way. You don't.
I appreciate that. I hope, well, they want me back for some reason.
I say that every year about myself too, so.
I know, right? It's a luxury for sure, but I couldn't care less what people think of me as a broadcaster. The only thing that bothers me is when people go, oh, well, anybody could do that. Well, then why aren't you here? Like I've seen people say that, get behind a microphone, not even live, and freeze. It's a refined skill, I guess, if I can call it that, you know, without sounding like an idiot. But basically, you know, for Steve and I, we show up at the rink. We'll generally have a meeting with the producer and Trevor, our great host, Trevor Pryor. He's the man. We'll all stand there and kind of go over who we want to cover in terms of player to watch, which usually I pick for both teams, so that Trevor can, and then Ember shoots, all that great stuff, the B-roll stuff that we run as I talk over it. To open the broadcast, Trevor interviews those two players. We go over, you know, if there's any important stats or streaks that are, you know, something to pay attention to in that game. Go over any injury notes, wait until they put the lineup up, and then adjust accordingly. And then we'll sit there and usually talk with the visiting broadcast crew about a certain player, or, you know, a winning streak, a losing streak, what's up with the coach, you know, just get general notes so that I have a plethora of stuff. Like I write all my stuff down on the roster sheets they give us. It looks like chicken scratch by the end of the game, because I'm just constantly writing down any little anecdote I have as a color guy, to throw out and try and make the broadcast sound interesting. And Steve is generally like, if I'm doing play-by-play when Steve's not there, or, you know, Steve's there doing play-by-play, generally get a little quiet, maybe half hour before puck drop, rest the voice a little bit and zone in. I mean, I usually, Steve will write a couple notes down. I'll throw some music on and just kind of get in the zone and get ready to do the best job in sports. It's like, it's a blessing, really. It's a lot of fun. And maybe I have a couple donuts in the media room beforehand. You know, I try and stay away from the donuts, but yeah, have a coffee and we're ready to go.
And I was going to say, do you feel a little bit more comfortable this year being in your second full year doing this, Ryan, with Rogers in the Storm?
I mean, like I said, when we were talking about Neil, like I felt comfortable last year. I walked in and no one, and Ember was a big part of this. Like no one was weird to me. And like, where's Bill?
That's odd because I'm weird in general.
Well, I am too. I think, us creatives are, we're a good bunch to kind of be in the same room. Right. And, I feel the same. I think that I had a really unique luxury though, because like I'd known Fitzy for 5 years before I started doing Storm games. Fitzy and I met when I used to host a hockey show in his hometown in Hanover on the local radio station there. They hired me to host a show and Fitzy was my co-host. Like, so I've known him for ages, and Bill used to be the great Bill Granger. He used to be our OHL insider on that show. So I knew Bill too. So I kind of walked in already knowing my broadcast partner really, really well. His intricacies, how he likes to call a game. I would like to think that you would find we don't talk over each other very much. I can read Steve's wavelength and vice versa. And, you walk in and everybody on the crew, including you two, were extremely cool to me. I would say for about the first month, I felt a little weird just because of who I replaced, because Bill was such a legend and deserved the kind of respect. I really hope I did well, because I can't say fill his shoes, because you can't fill somebody like Bill Granger's shoes. I just wanted to be myself and not try and replace Bill. And I think I settled into that after about a month, but I was comfortable with the whole crew and the setup pretty much from the word go. And, I thank you guys for being a part of that, because it made my first year, a joy.
And I think I can't speak for Ember, but I think I appreciate doing the games more now than before because of the pandemic and having that shutdown for a year and a half. A year and a half we lost. And like I said, I'm just glad things are back to normal. And like I said, I just want to keep getting more experience with this as well. And even when I started, I had no broadcasting experience other than doing one Guelph Night Hawk game, and the crew and Amber took me in. And if I didn't know something, you guys would be really good with showing me or being patient with me. And not one person since I've been there has put me down because of my age.
I will say, as someone who, grew up a lifelong Storm fan, used to be a season ticket holder. So like I was either at the game or watching it on TV or the radio, because I had some other stuff I had to do. So for me growing up, it was, as our tech producer would like to say, the father, son, and the goalie host. I love that so much, and I will never let it die. Kind of that was the epitome of like hockey broadcasting. Like, I wouldn't say I idolized Steve, but like I really looked up to him. My play-by-play is trash, by the way, but like I really copy his cadence, because that's what I know, and that's what I believe is really, really good play-by-play. So I don't want to sound like I was like, oh, Ryan's this outsider. No, it was weird the first couple of games, just being like, I'm used to hearing Bill and then just not. But in this business, especially with volunteers, there's such a big turnover all the time. Oh, Bill's retired and we got a replacement. Cool, let's go. I hope he's good.
I was going to say, hey guys, and I was going to remember, I was 40 years ago, I think this month, I went to my first ever OHL game at the old Guelph Memorial Gardens. The Kitchener Rangers and Guelph Platers, when the Platers became an expansion franchise, To this day, I think they're the worst expansion franchise ever. But it was such a big deal back then, 40 years ago. And remember seeing Don Cameron, the boost for the Kitchener Rangers, and Norm Jerry, the former mayor of Guelph, call the games for the Platers back then, and being in that building. And it's just hard to believe it's been 40 years since my first OHL game.
Yeah, it's incredible too when you consider that, the Platers had a rough go. It's incredible now to think back on the rich history that the Guelph Storm have established. They've done an awful lot of winning. And I mean, as Ember said, it's pretty rare. You got to dig pretty deep and look back on some leaner years where they didn't make the playoffs. They're usually competitive. They draft extremely well, particularly with import players, which, by the way, we didn't mention Valentin Jugan. I think Valentin Jugan's scoring 20 goals this year. Their import record is incredible. When you consider what you just said, Chris, and then you look back on when they got a team back and became the Storm, the just extremely well-run machine that it's become in terms of not only just being a solid OHL team, but cranking out good NHL talent. A lot of good players have come through there. Ryan Callahan, Drew Doughty. You go down the list. Nico Dawes is going to be the next one that gets a lot of attention. Poitras, Zhilkin, Pastajov. Like, the Storm have established a really, really great foothold in junior hockey, and I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon.
At the time, I was, as a 17-year-old kid, I was devastated when the Platers moved to Owen Sound. But you know what? In hindsight, that actually helped the city of Guelph prepare for a team like the Storm in the future and to have more success. And it actually worked out for Owen Sound and Guelph. So at the time, it was hard being a hockey fan in the city and not having junior hockey for a couple years. But in the long term, it's been the best thing for Owen Sound and Guelph now with the Storm, and hopefully for another 30 years.
I agree.
That just makes me want to go back. I haven't been up to Owen Sound to a game in 15, almost 20 years. So, and I remember back then, the Owen Sound fans, and I'm not saying Guelph isn't, because Guelph is very passionate too, but let's be real, Owen Sound is the smallest OHL market. There's not really a lot of going on up there. So, like, there's nothing to do and everyone's at the nothing, to use a kind of insulting metaphor.
Okay. Well, are you guys... sorry, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Well, that's a good point, because Owen Sound, like, it's the scenic city. It's a beautiful place, but it is kind of almost like the forgotten little brother of the OHL. And, make that assessment at your own peril. Other fan bases, it's a great place to see a game. There's just like something about an old rink, and the Harry Lumley Bayshore Arena is an old rink. It's not the Kitchener Odd. It's got I think it's about 15-ish years newer than the Odd, if that. But it's an old barn with a low ceiling, and the fans are right on top of you. And man, when they get rocking in there, like, the town knows they're the small market, and they rally around that. Like, they take pride in it, and they got a diehard dedicated fan base over there in Bear Country.
Definitely. This leads to my question for both of you guys. What are your thoughts on the return of Scott Walker behind the bench for the first time since 2015, and George Burnett being the general manager? And I want your thoughts on that as well.
I personally don't mind the move. It is a bit of a, the devil scenario. You can't argue with the track record in this league that Scott has. And I mean, as a pro player, he was a lot like his son. I don't know that Cooper is going to be a guy that drops the mitts as often as Scott did, which I had the pleasure of watching him do for a couple of years as a Washington Capital. But you can't argue with the way that he gets young guys to buy in. And I think that you're going to see a Guelph team that is not going to get into as many of those, fire wagon games where there's just goals galore all time. I think you're going to see them play a little more structured in their own zone. That's something that Scott's going to harp on for sure. And in terms of what it does for George, who's a great coach, like he's fourth all time in OHL wins. Like let's not discount how great of a coach George is. I think as he gotten a little older, he'd probably tell you that he has wanted to lean more into the front office and letting someone else handle the on-ice duties. Given what all happened with COVID getting thrown in the mix, I think he was happy to do it last year. But I think that this, and maybe not even necessarily with Scott coming back, but I think that this situation was always at the front of George's mind. Next year, I'm going to be the GM and run the team, and someone else is going to be behind the bench, and it just so happens to be a 2014 OHL champion.
Ember, what's your thoughts?
Interestingly enough, that championship season was my first season at Rogers, so I remember bits and pieces, but that team in 2013-2014 walked to the Memorial Cup final and then just didn't show up. But that team was built, guys like Burt, Causey, Nichols in net, top to bottom. That team was willing to run through a wall for each other. Now, interesting, this year, the teams are built way differently. This team is close to being a contender. Would it surprise me if they were in the final? No. Would it surprise me if, they got to the second, third round and lost to another team who deserves it? Also no. So I'm really interested to see how Scott handles things. From what you two have said, he's really good at motivating young guys, which, I mean, if you built your team well enough, the coach doesn't have to, because, energy goes top down. So your captains are motivating and putting a fire under the guys' butts that are playing 2-3 minutes a night, and make them feel like they're just as important as the first liners.
Question for you, Ryan, and maybe Amber too, if you know this. Is Scott Walker still allowed to have part ownership of the team, being a head coach? Like, I'm not sure how that works in the Ontario Hockey League with ownership and being a part of the coaching staff.
He was majority owner when he coached last time, so
yeah, he is allowed. I know that in the Constitution, which is across the CHL, I know it differs a little bit between the three leagues, but there are certain rules in there. I couldn't tell you what all of them are. It's a pretty extensive document. There are rules with how certain things are more so not allowed to happen when you are coaching or a GM when you have part ownership of the team. See Flint Firebirds from a couple years ago. Now, of course, the owner was not, he essentially tried to be a pseudo GM, and we all know how that turned out. So, there's rules and stuff in place, essentially codes of conduct, if you will. But yeah, he's absolutely allowed to keep his ownership stake in the team, which I think is somewhere around 8 or 9% now. I'm not sure.
Okay. My thoughts, I've noticed this too. A lot of the teams in the Ontario Hockey League are going back to having a coach and general manager. I don't know if there's too many teams now, maybe the London Knights, that have the coach and the general manager. Like, I know with the Knights, obviously Dale Hunter's the coach, but him and Mark are running the operations as well. But I find a lot of OHL teams now are going back to the old head coach and GM instead of having guys do both jobs. That's a lot of work on that. And I would love to talk to someone like George Burnett about how time consuming that was, being a head coach and also doing the general manager's duty at the same time.
I can't imagine it's an easy thing to do. And I don't know. I do have relatives, luckily enough for me to kind of glean information like this from that work in the NHL, where I would actually venture to say it might be harder to do that at the junior level, simply because of, they'd be difficult for different reasons. NHL, you're trying to handle a salary cap, finances, getting guys contracts structured. You're not doing that at the OHL level. But what you are doing is having to constantly worry about persistent roster turnover.
You have 4 years. Go.
Exactly. You're not signing, Matt Poitras and Danny Zhilkin to 8-year deals and locking them in as part of your, the core of your team for years on end, nearly a decade. You don't get to do that at the OHL level. You constantly have to be recruiting other players from other countries. You have to, have almost a 3-year, if not 4-year plan constantly where, even if I have a player that's a star, I am going to lose him, whether I like it or not, at some point because of age. So it's got to be pretty time consuming. And it is a lot more common in the OHL, I would imagine, simply because of financial, realities for certain teams. It's just easier to pay one guy to do it and do both than to have to split the salary and pay a higher amount for 2 people to do one job. That's probably literally what it boils down to, but it's got to be pretty difficult, I would think.
I can't imagine being doing one of those jobs, let alone doing both. No. I mean, I am just a camera person. I'm not in any type of room, but man, there are certain games where the coach part of me comes out and I'm standing there like a frustrated coach. I'm pacing back and watching hockey with me is real interesting, especially when Coach Me comes out.
Definitely. Hey, you guys okay for 2 more questions?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, this one I had to ask you. Who are some of the rookies on this Storm team the fans and the OHL fans of other teams should watch out for this season?
I think so. They've confirmed it, that this is the setup that they're going to run with in terms of the Junior B team as well. So obviously their second rounder, Hunter McKenzie, is a guy that is pretty highly touted, and they've confirmed that he's essentially going to split. Now, I don't know what that means. Does that mean 50-50? Does that mean 60-40? I don't know. It'll depend on how he plays, obviously. But Hunter McKenzie is a kid that's going to split some time between the Air Centennials and the Junior B and the Guelph Storm. So I think he is a player. He scored his first GOJHL career goal the other day, and it was a beautiful shot. He's got a wicked release. He projects out to be a really good OHL goal scorer. He's a guy that if he is in the lineup, you should probably pay attention to him. Obviously, Rowan Top as well is going to be a factor on this team. How much this year, I don't know. This will be a year simply because we're going back to normal.
Top and both second and third round picks got sent to Air. So how much time they spend there, who's to say? We're not in the room. I imagine they're going to do it like kind of what they did with Nate Schnarr, which is you're not really going to see a lot of games. You're going to be playing mostly in Junior B, but you're going to be at all the practices. You're going to be a member of this team, just not on the ice.
Yeah, okay. I agree. That's probably how it works out. Like they'll get to be around the team, get to benefit from the training facilities and being around the guys and kind of learn what it means to be a Guelph Storm player. If either of them suited up for more than 10, 11 games, I'd be shocked, unless, of course, injuries happen. We saw what happened last year with a guy like Zach Sandu, for instance. That would be the only way I would see them playing a lot.
Okay, definitely. And I'm going to wrap it up with this question for both of you. What will be the strengths of this Storm team, and what area that could be improved upon during the season? And where do you guys see the Storm in win total and finishing in the Western Conference this year?
So I think the obvious strength is offense. they've got guys that can put the puck in the net, and it goes right down through the depth of the lineup. Ben McFarland, he is a guy with a lethal shot. He can offer more. I just talked about Valentin Zhugin, who I think has so much skill. Look at some of his highlights from last year, particularly in the shootout. He's got filthy mitts. I think he's scoring 20, bare minimum high teens. He's going to get power play looks as well because he's got a great one-timer. You look all the way down, Danny Dangles, Zhilkin is going to have a big year. I think Sasha Pastajov is going to have a 90-plus point season and probably score 45. Pastajov is good enough at this level to score 50. Now, I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on him. I'm just saying he can. And he'd be the first one to do that since Ratcliffe, obviously, who had a dynamite year that season for the Storm. I think Pastajov, different offensive player. He does it in a different way. And you talk about one-timers. Pastajov's got one of the best in junior hockey. Goal scoring is going to be their biggest strength. Goaltending is going to be the area that has a question mark, and maybe not as big a question mark as some. Like, keep in mind, like Jacob Oster as a 16 turning 17-year-old last year had the 7th best goals against average in the entire OHL last year. And that was with him until later in the season when Owen Bennett really started faltering. Oster was able to do that with a faltered schedule. They were running Bennett one night, and no matter how well he played, Oster'd be in the next night. No matter how well he played, Bennett would go back. They were running so he never really got to build consistently until later in the season and had the 7th best goals against in the league. But that being said, he's 17. I'm struggling to think of an OHL champion that had a 17-year-old goalie in net. And then Dixon Grimes, who I love to death. He's a great kid. I cover the Listowel Cyclones here in town. They're down the street from me. He is an elite junior B goalie. Is he going to be able to finally seize an opportunity with Bennett out of the picture now to make Guelph comfortable enough to run them as a battery? I don't know. And that's the thing. If he can't, George is going to have to make a decision on what he wants to do in terms of trying to acquire a veteran goalie. But that's the obvious place they could improve on. In terms of the standings, I think Guelph is going to finish 2nd or 3rd. I dare not touch the sun and say they're finishing 1st in the Western Conference because I think Owen Sound is really going to give them a run for their money. I think they're going to finish top 3, though, because I think that they're that good. They're going to be that much more improved. 5th last year, I don't think with the returning cast that they have here, another year wiser and stronger, and with Scott Walker behind the bench, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they're a top 2 or 3 Western Conference team.
Okay, Amber, what's your thoughts? How do you think they'll finish and win total?
I personally see them around the 3 or 4 spot. Would not surprise me for them to finish higher. It's the OHL. Crazy stuff happens all the time. It's just the nature of the beast. But to me, their strength, from what I see, is their depth, both scoring-wise and on that back end. Yes, you're going to have some question marks on where everybody fits in, especially on defense with the new import, with all those bubble players last year who I imagine will have more definitive roles this year. Plus, George went out and I believe traded for a defenseman from Sudbury, I believe. I can't remember what team, so where does he fit in? But the biggest question mark for me is goaltending. Do I believe Jacob Oster can lead this team? Yes. Were there times last year where I wanted to beat my head against the wall because he did something astronomically dumb? Yes. I can remember one spot where, he went to play a puck behind the net, was just way too slow. The player came in and easiest goal of that player's career.
That was Flint, wasn't it? That Flint game that got out of hand for them, and then it went to overtime. Wasn't that Amadeus Lombardi that stripped the puck from him? If my memory's foggy, but yeah, I remember the play you're talking about, and Steve and I kind of going, there's no good way to sugarcoat what just happened there.
You and I pretty much had the same reaction of just what just happened.
His puck playing is not Jake's strength. He's not a great puck playing goalie.
Don't tell him that because he's not going to stop.
Well,
but
we'll see.
At the same time, I've seen him play the puck last year where he was sound. He did the right thing. He played it to the right man. He didn't give it up for an easy goal. So it's junior hockey. So who knows? Now, when it comes to backup, that's where I love Dixon Grimes. First of all, he has a Batman mask, and to me, that is like the coolest thing ever. Also, he's a Guelph kid, and I always love seeing a hometown kid play for the team that they grew up cheering for. I think it's a really cool story, so I hope he does make the team, but if not, enjoy the roller coaster ride that we're going to have this season.
As for the Storm, I see them winning 40 games and finishing with about 88 points.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I have no qualms about that. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I'd be disappointed, dare I say.
I was going to say last year they had London's number again. I think they were 7-4 against London last year as well.
They were really good against the Knights, and I'm sure that made Ember very happy.
One of my shots made it to bar down because I believe it was Evangelista who got 40, and that little handshake, I shot that, and I'm like, I'm very proud that people are seeing my work. Granted, no one knows my name. I have a very O-lineman attitude about that, which is you only know my name when I screw up. But I'm proud that shot made it out, but at the same time, it hurts my heart.
Yeah, you're a diehard fan through and through. I respect it. Honestly.
I have a Team Canada Ryan Parent jersey.
That's about as diehard as it gets. No disrespect to Ryan Parent, but yeah, you're about as diehard as it gets.
I was going to say, guys, I kept you an hour and 10 minutes, but I was going to say thank you both for coming on today. And where can my audience find you on social media if they wish to follow you on social media?
I'm a pretty easy guy to find. My Twitter handle's been the same for about 8 years now, at CKNX _ Drury. That's DRURY. I'm on Facebook as well. You can find the show that I host, the Instigating Podcast with Clarkey and Drury. It's all over the place. Apple, Spotify. It's on Facebook. We're on Instagram, wherever you want to go. And on occasion, if you're a heavy metal fan, you can find my band. We just released a music video today.
I was going to ask about that because I was perusing your Instagram and I'm like, EP just all right. If it's metal, I'm in. I am absolutely in.
It's pretty gross. It's not for everybody. It's pretty heavy, but yes, Clarence Street is the name of my band. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube. We just dropped a new music video today called No Lines. So that's where you can find me being creative, if you will.
Amber?
For me, when I do post, it's usually not a lot. On my Twitter, it's a lot of hockey stuff and a lot of political stuff. If that's not your thing, I totally get it. Instagram, I mostly post shots at me at work, so either me at Rogers or me doing Gryph Vision, and if you like NHL video game stuff, I'm in a couple different Twitch streams. I don't stream myself, but I am there causing havoc in chat. And everywhere you can find me, and my username is @girlwiththetophat.
Okay, definitely. And like you
That's
said,
a great handle.
I was gonna say
that's a wicked handle.
Definitely. But hey, thank you for following me on TikTok. And since I got you guys on here, I'm at 985 followers. I need 15 more followers so I can do this show on TikTok as well live.
Beautiful. I'm not on the talk. I don't know if that's surprising to people. I don't know. I'm just not. I don't know, man. I just don't spend a lot of time on social media. I've gotten so bored. I don't know. I've just gotten bored with it. I mean, outside of sharing some of the band stuff, if I'm not at the rink and covering games, I don't know. I've gotten a lot more quiet on it over the last few years, but follow this show on TikTok, guys, and get Chris on another platform. Okay. He deserves it.
Thank you so much. And one of my favorite video clips on my TikTok page is a 40-yard dash with a certain camera operator.
Hey, my 40 was under 10. That was the goal.
Hey, we all have goals. We gotta have goals.
Also, if I can have a little bit of a hipster moment, I was on TikTok before it was called TikTok.
Wow. What was it
What
before?
was it yeah,
Musically.
What was it before? You learn something new every day, folks.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and I just joined it a year ago because I had people bugging me about it, and it's just another way to get noticed on there as well. But there's a lot of stuff on TikTok, but I just use it strictly for my promoting my guests and my podcast show on there, or posting sports videos or 40-yard dashes.
As you should.
Definitely.
TikTok is crazy with the algorithm. Like, I remember when I swapped my phone, I'm like, I cannot lose my TikTok. I've spent a year and a half cultivating it. I am not going back to like
cultivating.
I'm not going back to the standard For You page. I can't do it. I follow too many cosplayers to start over from scratch again.
Beautiful.
All right. All right, guys. I was going to say, Ryan, we'll see you in 2 weeks from today when they're taking on the OHL champion Hamilton Bulldogs. And one of my friends, Ryan Humphrey, really good guy too. He's been on my show. And Amber, we'll see you next Friday and Saturday, most likely, for the Storm game against Mississauga, and then the Guelph Griffins homecoming against Queens.
Yep, homecoming.
They took care of me today.
One thing about the Griffins, Ashton Reeser committed to the men's hockey team. So
that's right.
I got really excited for that. I like seeing Storm players and being able to cover them beyond their OHL stuff. Hopefully the Griffins are better this year. They have a lot of commitments from former OHL guys. One of them's got invited to NHL camp. So I hope that works out well for him, but he still comes back to Guelph. Also, the head coach is a former Storm coach, so like Ember's living in heaven.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So guys, I would definitely like to have you back on again in the future. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on season 4, episode 30, my 195th episode all time on Live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure, Chris. And hey, man, you know where to find me. I'm available anytime.
And same here. And Amber, thank you for coming on. And we'll look forward to seeing you from a week from now.
Oh, by the way, to anyone who's watching this and wonders, am I like this and off camera? Yes. I am all over the place all of the time.
But you
and
behaved.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And you behaved no profanity. So that was perfect.
I was in another stream today, and somewhere I hang out a lot, and I'm just like, I'm honestly really worried I'm gonna drop a 4-letter word. Just absent-minded. I grew up playing hockey and I'm in TV. Like, profanity is just like the word "the." It gets used all the time.
We both held on.
Yes, definitely. But guys, I hope you have a great night, and we'll definitely see you guys at the rink real soon. And we'll have to talk more about the London Knights too. I'm going to have one of the night guys on in a couple weeks as well, Jim Van Horn. So Amber, next time I bring you on, we're going to have to talk pro wrestling. We'll do a pro wrestling show.
In preparation of that, I wore a Kid Bandit shirt. And if you don't know who Kid Bandit is, they are an amazing non-binary wrestler. If you are big into anime, you're going to love their gimmick because it's just anime personified.
Definitely. So yeah, I want to have a wrestling podcast show. I'd like to do one and have you talk about the WWE, AEW, and even the independent wrestling leagues around here as well.
One thing I will say, it's like wrestling has 2 major companies. It's a healthy industry. Nickelback just dropped a heavy song. Like, is this 2022 or are we in 1998?
By the way, it's 2022.
By the way, Nickelback's new song is legitimately fantastic. I love it so much, and I've been missing it their last couple albums.
There you go. They're back.
All right. And I didn't know that about you, Ryan, either, that you had your own music band. So every time I do a show, I learn something new about my guests.
Yeah, it's not something that I generally advertise around the hockey rink. It is a bit of a niche genre, if you will, the whole screaming thing. And I don't know, that's just,
oh my God, now I have to see you live.
that's just that's what I grew up doing. I mean, I was in a band for 6 years, all through high school, and a little bit before that. And my best friend and I, just out of boredom during the pandemic, started writing some songs, and it just kind of became a little bigger than maybe we were expecting. But yes, I do enjoy making music. It's maybe the only thing I like more than sports. So
I have no musical talent. I did karaoke intoxicated in New York City 3 years ago, and I emptied out the bar, and the guy said, please don't come back here again.
What did you sing?
I sung Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Of course!
That was your mistake.
Detroit Rock City, and Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It. So yeah, 3 old songs.
Okay, yeah, you reached for the sun a little bit with the Journey, because Steve Perry's one of the greatest vocalists of all time. But
yep.
I can respect your choices.
Yes, but I have no musical talent, so that's gonna. And if I hadn't a few drinks in me, I probably wouldn't have done it.
I don't do karaoke because I sound terrible, but like being an emo kid, most of what I would want to sing, they probably don't have. Like,
I don't know. I think they queue up some My Chemical Romance for you. What's wrong with that?
No, I'm thinking like Dear Maria, Count Me In.
Oh, a little all-time low. Count Me In. Let's do a duet.
Or Love Drunk. I've been listening to that the last couple of days, and I'm like, God, it's so good.
You're speaking my language a little bit here. All
right. Or anything.
We gotta let Chris go. We're gonna be on here for another 2 hours.
I told him I was free all day, so if this rides, let it ride.
All right, but no, I'll definitely have you guys come back on my podcast show again, and looking forward to seeing you guys in the next week, and in your case, Ryan, in the next 2 weeks, and getting back to doing the hockey games again.
Absolutely, Chris. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Ember. Thank you so much, Ryan, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. Go Knights.
I hope I made you cringe with that.
That's okay. No worries. No worries. All right, guys. Have a great night. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the NFL games, and go Birds. Go Eagles.
Go Ticats.
Boo. All right. See you guys. Thank you so much.
See you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today, season 4, episode 30, with Ryan Drury and Ember Campbell, as we were talking about the Guelph Storm 2022-23 Guelph Storm team. And Ryan's the color analyst for the Storm broadcast on Rogers, and he's also a sports and news anchor on CKNX News in Wingham, Ontario. And Ember Campbell is a longtime volunteer camera operator for Rogers TV and the University of Guelph with Gryph Vision as well. And she's been a big help to me doing camera work with Rogers, and now with Gryph Vision as well. Guys, just to let you know, Live with CDP Sports Talk is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. You can check out barrycullen.com for their newest selections of pre and brand new GM vehicles. And you guys can call them at 519-824-0210. And I'll just put that picture right up on here as well. But I really appreciate, again, Mark Cullen for having faith in me and sponsoring Live with CDP Sports Podcast as well. And before I wrap things up, guys, I'm just going to let you guys know my next live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Collins Chevrolet, is going to be Monday, September 20th at 6 p.m. Eastern. My guest is going to be Ryan Levere. He's a Rogers TV camera operator, and he's been with Rogers, I think, for 8 years, the same amount of time as Amber. So Ryan's going to come on and talk some Kitchener Rangers hockey and also the OHL and his volunteer career with Rogers TV as a camera operator as well. So I look forward to that as well. So I hope you guys can tune into that this Monday night, September 20th at 6 p.m. for season 4, episode 31 with live with CDP Sports Talk with Ryan Levere as well. I'm looking forward to that as well. And before we wrap up this podcast show, guys, I do this with all my shows after. I'm just going to have it right here. Hang on one second, guys. Live with CDP Sports Talk podcast. The audio version is downloaded to Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. And Live with CDP Sports Talk is now Live with CDP Sports Talk. The audio edition is now being listened to in 19 countries across the world. So thank you to everybody for listening to my talk show on audio platforms. It's amazing, 19 countries. I'm very grateful and very lucky of this. And also want to say thank you to my audience watching this live on my YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe notification and likes to my previous podcast shows on there. And also thank you to everybody watching this on Facebook Live and also on Twitter Live under Chris D. Palme as well. And also, guys, check out my weekly live audio show on Twitter Spaces called the Argo Bounce. It's about the Toronto Argonauts and the CFL, and my co-host is Nick Small. We do that once a week on my Twitter page at Christy Palme under Twitter Spaces, and I'm looking forward to doing the Argo Bounce show with Nick again soon. And also, I do some Philadelphia Eagles post-game and pre-game shows on Twitter Space as well. And before we wrap this up, guys, also, you guys can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. That's at Live with CDP on TikTok. I'm at 985 followers right now. If I can get another 15 followers, I will be able to do this talk show podcast live on TikTok as well. So, and to those who are following me on TikTok, thank you so much as well. And I guess, yeah, and also the Eagles next game is this Monday night, September 20th at 8:30 against the Minnesota Vikings at Lincoln Financial Field. So it's going to be the 1-0 Vikings against the 1-0 Eagles, and that should be a very good game as well. And the other Monday night game is 7:15 from Orchard Park, New York. The Tennessee Titans taking on the Buffalo Bills as well. And before we go, guys, just wanted to let you know I have my own website now. Please check out beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. All of my content and social media sites are on this website. So beacon.ai/Chris D. Palme. Everything about me on social media, digital content creator, and that is on there as well. And I look forward to adding to that as well. And also, guys, just wanted to let you guys know, I'm just going to put this on here before I go. I have a friend that's doing a support group. It's kind of a support group in the States, basically to help people, to inspire them into careers. It's called The Unsealed with Lauren Burrell. And her mission is to diversify a collection of voices and experiences to empower and unite people. So check her site out. It's called The Unsealed with Lauren Burrell. She was also a former TV sports anchor reporter with Channel 4 in Buffalo and Channel 5 in Cleveland. And I just thought I'd give her online business a little shout out called The Unsealed with Lauren Brill. Check it out. Honestly, there's some great stories. I've met some good people and friends there as well. And I will put her website up as well. You can check out her website at theunsealed.com. theunsealed.com. And that's about it, guys. I'm going to wrap up this podcast show. But again, I want to say thank you to my guests today, Ryan Drury and Ember Campbell, for coming on season 4, episode 30 of Live with CDP Sports Talk. Again, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, 905 Woodlawn Road in the Guelph Auto Mall. And I hope everybody has a great evening and great weekend and enjoy the NFL games. And we'll see you here Monday night, September 20th, 6 p.m. Eastern, with Rogers TV camera operator Ryan Lavere. So, again, thank you to Ryan and Amber for coming on. And give me about 15 minutes, and I'll have this live podcast show downloaded to my audio platform. So, I hope everybody has a great Friday night, great weekend, and we'll see you Monday, 6 o'clock for season 4, episode 31 of Live with CDP Sports Talk. Take care.